It was a quiet evening in the small suburban house, the kind of stillness that creeps in after a long day of routine. The living room glowed with the soft light of a television, flickering shadows across the room as some mindless sitcom played. I wasn't paying attention, though. My best friend's brother, Jamie, had always had a presence that filled any space he occupied, and tonight, sitting so close on the couch, he felt larger than life. Jamie had come home from college for the summer, and even though he was only a year older than me, he carried himself with a confidence that always left me breathless. It wasn't just his looks, though he was objectively striking. Dark hair that curled at the edges, a strong jawline, and those piercing blue eyes. No, it was the way he seemed so comfortable in his skin, the way he always knew what to say or when to stay silent. Tonight, it was the latter. He had plopped down on the couch next to me after dinner, flipping through channels until he landed on some random show, and now we sat there in a silence that felt far from empty. His knee was only inches away from mine, and I could feel the heat radiating from him. Every time he shifted, it sent a ripple of awareness through me, my focus zeroing in on him as if he were the only thing in the room. "You're quiet tonight," Jamie said suddenly, his voice low and warm. He turned to look at me, one brow arched in that effortless way he had. I shrugged, trying to play it cool. "Just tired, I guess." He didn't respond right away, just tilted his head slightly, studying me in that way that always made me feel like he could see right through me. "You don't have to be nervous around me, you know." "I'm not," I said quickly, though the flush creeping up my neck probably gave me away. His lips quirked into a small smile, the kind that felt like he knew something I didn't. "Okay," he said, turning his attention back to the TV. But he didn't move away. The room felt hotter all of a sudden, the air thick with something I couldn't quite name. I tried to focus on the show, on anything other than the proximity of Jamie's leg to mine, but it was impossible. My heart was racing and every inhale felt heavy with unspoken tension. I wondered if he could feel it too, or if it was all in my head. "Hey," Jamie said after a while, his voice softer now. When I turned to look at him, his eyes were steady, searching. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure," I said, though my voice came out quieter than I intended. He hesitated, like he was choosing his words carefully. "Has anyone ever told you that you're kind of a mystery?" I blinked at him, caught off guard. "A mystery?" "Yeah," he said, leaning back slightly, though his gaze didn't waver. "Like, you've got this whole quiet, thoughtful thing going on. It makes people want to know what's going on in your head." I laughed nervously, unsure how to respond. "I don't think I'm that mysterious." "You are," he said firmly, his tone making it clear he wasn't joking. "But I like that about you." His words hung in the air between us, heavy and electric. I didn't know what to say, so I looked away, my pulse hammering in my ears. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw him shift closer, and when I glanced back, his expression had softened. He was watching me in a way that felt almost too intense, like he was trying to unravel me with his eyes alone. "Jamie," I started, but my voice faltered when his hand brushed against mine. It was subtle, barely a touch, but it sent a jolt through me that I couldn't ignore. His hand lingered near mine, not quite touching but close enough that I could feel the heat of his skin. It was a deliberate kind of closeness, one that left me wondering if I should pull away or let the moment stretch on. My heart pounded, my thoughts a jumble of questions and answers I didn't want to face. Jamie wasn't looking at the TV anymore. His gaze was fixed on me, those blue eyes intense and unflinching. "You don't have to say anything," he said softly, as though he could sense the storm raging inside me. His voice was calm, steady, like he was trying to anchor me in a moment that felt like it was spinning out of control. "I don't know what to say," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. It felt like the truth hung in the air between us, unspoken but undeniable. Jamie smiled, but it wasn't the playful grin he usually wore. This one was softer, almost vulnerable. "Sometimes You don't need words." The room felt impossibly small, the silence between us heavy with everything I didn't know how to articulate. His hand shifted, the back of his fingers brushing lightly against mine. The contact was brief, fleeting, but it was enough to send a jolt through me that left me breathless. I didn't pull away. "I've noticed the way you look at me," he said, his tone gentle but unwavering. "And I can't stop wondering if you feel it too. Whatever this is." I froze, my breath catching in my throat. My instinct was to deny it, to brush it off with a laugh or a joke, but I couldn't. Not when the weight of his words felt so real, so inevitable. I looked up at him, and for the first time, I didn't try to hide what I was feeling. The tension that had been building between us for so long was suddenly laid bare, and I couldn't look away. "I don't know," I said finally, my voice trembling with the honesty of it. "I don't know what I feel." Jamie nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. "That's okay," he said. "I'm not asking you to figure it all out right now. I needed to say it, to put it out there." His hand rested fully against mine now, his fingers curling slightly as if waiting for me to respond. The warmth of his touch was grounding, even as it sent my heart racing. I didn't know what to do, what to say, but the moment felt too fragile to break. "Jamie," I began, but he shook his head, cutting me off. "You don't have to say anything," he repeated, his voice barely more than a whisper. "I just want to be here with you. Like this." His words left me reeling, my emotions a tangled mess of confusion and something deeper that I didn't want to name. The world outside the living room seemed to fade away, leaving just the two of us in this charged, intimate bubble that felt like it could burst at any moment. Slowly, almost hesitantly, I let my hand turn over, my fingers brushing against his before lacing together with his. It was a small gesture, but it felt monumental, like crossing a line I couldn't uncross. Jamie's breath hitched slightly, and when I looked up at him, his eyes were filled with something I couldn't quite put into words. "I've thought about this," he admitted, his voice so soft I almost didn't hear him. "About you, about us. I know it's not what you expected, but Don't," I interrupted, shaking my head. "Don't say it." He searched my face, his brow furrowing slightly. "Why not?" "Because if you say it, it becomes real," I said, my voice trembling with the weight of the admission. "And I don't know if I'm ready for that." Jamie's grip on my hand tightened slightly, not enough to hurt, but enough to remind me that he was still there, still present in a way that felt both overwhelming and comforting. "You don't have to be ready," he said simply. "I'll wait." His words sent a shiver through me, and I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. I didn't know what to say, how to respond to the raw honesty in his voice. So I didn't say anything. Instead, I leaned into him, resting my head against his shoulder as the weight of the moment pressed down on both of us. Jamie didn't move at first, but then his arm wrapped around me, pulling me closer in a way that felt both protective and deeply intimate. I could feel the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, the warmth of his body against mine, and it was enough to ground me in a moment that felt like it could have swept me away. For a long time we just sat there like that, the TV playing forgotten in the background. Neither of us spoke, but the silence between us wasn't empty. It was filled with all the things we couldn't say, all the emotions we couldn't name, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I wasn't alone. As the night wore on, the tension between us softened, replaced by a quiet understanding that neither of us needed to push further. Not yet. But even as I stayed there, wrapped in Jamie's arms, I knew that we had crossed a line, one that couldn't be undone. Jamie's arm stayed draped over my shoulder, his fingers brushing lightly against my arm in a way that felt absent-minded but deliberate. Each stroke sent tiny jolts through my skin, making it impossible to focus on anything other than his closeness. I could feel the rise and fall of his chest against me, steady and rhythmic, as if he was unbothered by the storm of emotions raging in my mind. For a while, neither of us spoke. The TV flickered in front of us. The only sound in the room the canned laughter of a sitcom. Neither of us was watching. My thoughts churned, tangling around each other until I couldn't tell what was real and what was just fear. "I don't want to mess this up," I said finally, my voice barely more than a whisper. The words hung between us, heavy and raw, and I felt Jamie shift beside me. "You're not going to," he said softly. "I promise." His words should have reassured me, but instead they made my chest tighten. I turned to look at him, and the closeness of his face caught me off guard. His blue eyes were steady, calm, but there was something vulnerable in them too, something that mirrored the chaos inside me. "How can you be so sure?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Because I know what I feel," he said, his tone unwavering. "And I think you do too." I swallowed hard, my throat dry. His words felt too real, too certain, and I didn't know how to handle them. Jamie's hand slid from my arm to my hand, his fingers intertwining with mine again, and the simplicity of the gesture made my heart ache. It was tender, not demanding, like he was trying to give me space even as he closed the distance between us. "You don't have to figure it all out tonight," he said, his voice soft but firm. "I just want to know if there's a part of you that wants this too, whatever it is." I couldn't look away from him, couldn't ignore the quiet intensity in his gaze. There was no hiding from him, not when he was sitting so close, his hand warm and steady in mine. My mind raced, but every argument I tried to summon felt hollow in the face of the truth staring back at me. "Yes," I said finally, the word trembling on my lips, "but I'm scared." Jamie's expression softened and he squeezed my hand gently. "I get that," he said, "but you don't have to be. Not with me." His words hit me like a wave, and before I could think better of it, I leaned forward, pressing my forehead against his shoulder. His other arm came around me almost instantly, holding me close as if he knew exactly what I needed. The world outside seemed to disappear, leaving only the two of us in a cocoon of warmth and quiet understanding. For a long moment, we stayed like that, neither of us moving. I could feel the steady beat of his heart, the rise and fall of his breath, and it was enough to calm the storm inside me, if only for a little while. "Jamie," I said finally, my voice muffled against his shirt, "what happens now?" He pulled back slightly, just enough to look at me, and the tenderness in his expression made my chest ache. "Whatever you want," he said. "I'll follow your lead." His words felt like both a reassurance and a challenge, and I wasn't sure I was ready for either. But the way he looked at me, the way his hand stayed steady in mine, made me feel like maybe, just maybe, I could trust him. Slowly, almost hesitantly, I leaned forward, closing the small gap between us. Jamie's eyes searched mine, and for a moment, the air between us felt charged, electric. Then his lips met mine, soft and warm, and everything else faded away. The kiss was tentative at first, almost shy, but it deepened quickly, the emotions between us spilling over in a way that felt both inevitable and overwhelming. His hand cupped the side of my face, his thumb brushing gently against my cheek as he pulled me closer. I felt my heart racing, every nerve in my body alight with sensation, but for once, I didn't want to run. When we finally pulled apart, we were both breathing heavily, our foreheads resting together as we tried to process what had just happened. Jamie's hand didn't leave my face, and his thumb traced a slow, soothing line along my jaw. "You okay?" he asked, his voice barely more than a whisper. I nodded, though I wasn't sure if it was entirely true. I didn't know what I was feeling, fear, exhilaration, confusion, but I knew I didn't regret it, and that was enough for now. Jamie smiled, a small soft thing that made my chest tighten. "Good," he said, "because I don't want this to be the only time." His words sent a shiver through me, but I couldn't bring myself to pull away. Instead, I leaned back into him, resting my head against his chest as the weight of the moment settled over us. "I don't know what I'm doing," I admitted, my voice trembling. "You don't have to," Jamie said, his voice steady and reassuring. "We'll figure it out. Together." I closed my eyes, letting his words wash over me, and for the first time, the fear that had been gnawing at me began to ease. I didn't know what came next, but with Jamie, I felt like maybe I didn't have to have all the answers. Not yet. We stayed like that for a long time, wrapped in each other's presence as the night deepened around us. The sounds of the outside world seemed distant, irrelevant, as though we'd created a bubble where nothing else existed but the two of us. Jamie's hand moved slowly, his fingers brushing up and down my arm in a soothing rhythm that made my thoughts feel less tangled, less overwhelming. It wasn't until the TV clicked off automatically, the screen going dark, that the moment broke. Jamie shifted slightly, his arms loosening but not pulling away. His breath was warm against my temple, and when I tilted my head to look at him, the look in his eyes made my chest ache all over again. "We should probably—" I trailed off, not really sure how to finish the sentence. Go to bed? Figure out what just happened? Pretend this wasn't the most significant moment of my life? None of those options seemed right. Jamie nodded, as if he understood exactly what I wasn't saying. "Yeah," he said softly, "but only if you want to." His words weren't just about the moment. It was about everything. He was giving me an out, a chance to step back if I needed it. But the idea of leaving, of putting space between us after what had just happened, felt impossible. "I don't want to go yet," I admitted, my voice trembling. Jamie smiled, small and warm. "Okay," he said simply, his thumb brushing lightly over the back of my hand. "Then we don't." The room felt quieter now, heavier somehow, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was a silence filled with the weight of everything we weren't saying, everything we were still figuring out. Jamie leaned back against the couch, his arms still draped over my shoulders, and I let myself settle against him, feeling his warmth seep into me. "You're thinking too much," Jamie said after a while, his voice low and teasing. "I can practically hear the gears turning." I laughed, though it was a nervous sound. "Sorry," I said. I don't know what to do with this. With us." Jamie shifted slightly, his arm tightening around me. "You don't have to do anything," he said. "There's no script for this. We'll figure it out as we go." "Easier said than done," I murmured, though I couldn't help but smile at the reassurance in his voice. He tilted his head, looking down at me with that quiet intensity that always seemed to strip me bare. "Do you regret it?" he asked, his tone careful, like he was trying not to push too hard. The question hit me like a weight, but the answer was surprisingly clear. I shook my head. "No," I said softly. "I don't." Jamie's expression softened, and he leaned forward just enough to press a light, lingering kiss to my forehead. It was such a simple gesture, but it sent warmth flooding through me, settling somewhere deep in my chest. "I don't either," he said quietly. "Not even a little." I wasn't sure how it was possible for my heart to ache and race at the same time, but that was exactly how I felt in that moment. Vulnerable and raw, but also safe in a way I hadn't expected. Jamie's arms around me felt like a barrier against the outside world, like nothing could touch us as long as we stayed here, in this quiet space we'd created together. Eventually, though, the weight of the day began to pull at me. My body felt heavy, my thoughts softening at the edges as exhaustion crept in. Jamie must have noticed because he shifted, gently untangling himself from me. "Come on," he said, standing and offering me his hand. "You're falling asleep on me." I hesitated, glancing at the clock. It was late, later than I'd realized, and the idea of moving, of breaking this moment, felt strangely daunting. But Jamie's hand was steady, his gaze warm and reassuring, and I found myself reaching for him without thinking. "Where are we going?" I asked as he pulled me to my feet. He smirked, a small teasing quirk of his lips. "To bed," he said. "You look like you're about to pass out." My cheeks burned at the implication, but Jamie didn't let go of my hand as he led me toward the stairs. The house was quiet around us, the kind of silence that felt like it might crack at any moment, but Jamie's presence was grounding, keeping me from overthinking every step we took. When we reached my room, he hesitated, standing in the doorway with his hand still loosely holding mine. His gaze flickered to the bed, then back to me, and I could see the question in his eyes before he said it. "Do you want me to stay?" he asked softly, his voice careful, as though he was afraid of scaring me off. I didn't answer right away. My heart was pounding, my mind racing with everything this moment meant, everything it could mean. But when I looked at him, really looked at him, I felt the answer settle somewhere deep inside me. "Yes," I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. "I do." Jamie didn't say anything, but the way his shoulders relaxed, the way his lips curved into a small, relieved smile, told me everything I needed to know. He stepped inside, closing the door softly behind him, and for a moment we just stood there, the weight of the night pressing down on us. "I don't want to mess this up," I said again, the words slipping out before I could stop them. "You won't," Jamie said firmly, his hand lifting to brush a strand of hair from my face. "And neither will I. We'll figure it out." His words were a promise, quiet but certain, and as he pulled me into his arms again, I let myself believe him. For the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I wasn't alone in this. And as the night stretched on, as we lay tangled together in the quiet darkness of my room, I let myself stop thinking, stop questioning, and just be. The stillness of the night enveloped us as we lay on the bed, Jamie's arms a steady presence around me. The quiet rhythm of his breathing filled the space, grounding me in a moment that felt fragile and infinite all at once. My head rested against his chest, the warmth of his skin radiating through the thin fabric of his shirt. It was the kind of silence that didn't need words, a quiet understanding that neither of us was ready to break. But as much as I wanted to stay in that cocoon of peace, my thoughts wouldn't stop circling. Every small movement, every shared breath felt like a step further into uncharted territory. And as much as I trusted Jamie, trusted the way he made me feel, I couldn't shake the fear of what came next. "Jamie," I murmured, my voice barely audible in the dark. "Hmm?" His hand slid slowly up and down my back, soothing and steady. "Are you scared?" The question hung in the air between us, heavier than I'd intended. He didn't answer right away, and I lifted my head to look at him. His face was partially shadowed in the dim light filtering through the window, but his expression was open, vulnerable in a way that made my chest tighten. "I was," he admitted finally. "Before tonight I was terrified. Of messing this up, of saying the wrong thing, of losing you." He paused, his gaze locking with mine. "But now, not anymore." The conviction in his voice sent a shiver through me, and I couldn't look away. There was something so unshakable about the way he spoke, like he wasn't just saying it for my benefit. He meant it, completely and entirely. "I don't know how you do that," I said softly, my voice trembling with the weight of everything I couldn't put into words. "Do what?" Jamie asked, a small, curious smile tugging at his lips. "Make me feel safe." The word felt inadequate, but it was the closest I could get to describing the way he made me feel like I wasn't walking this tightrope alone. Jamie's smile softened, and he reached up to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear. "Because you are," he said simply. "With me, you always will be." Something inside me cracked at his words, a dam breaking loose as the emotions I'd been holding back rushed to the surface. Before I could think better of it, I leaned forward, pressing my lips to his in a kiss that was as much a question as it was an answer. Jamie responded immediately, his hands sliding up to cradle my face as he deepened the kiss. It wasn't rushed or frantic. It was deliberate, full of a tenderness that made my heart ache. I felt myself melting into him, the last of my reservation slipping away as I gave in to the moment. When we finally pulled apart, our foreheads resting together, I couldn't help but laugh softly, the sound shaky with nerves and relief. "What are we doing?" I asked, though the question didn't carry the weight it once had. Jamie's thumb brushed lightly against my cheek, his smile warm and reassuring. "Something good," he said. "Something real." I let his words settle over me, and for the first time, I believed them. Whatever this was, whatever we were, it felt real. It felt right, and even though I didn't have all the answers, I realized I didn't need them. Not yet. The night stretched on, and we stayed like that, tangled together in the quiet intimacy of the moment. We didn't talk much after that, letting the silence speak for us as the weight of the day gave way to the quiet rhythm of sleep. Jamie's arms around me felt like a promise, unspoken but unbreakable, and I let myself rest in the safety of that. When morning came, the first rays of sunlight streaming through the window, I woke to find Jamie still beside me. His face was relaxed in sleep, his hair tousled in a way that made him look younger, softer. For a moment, I just watched him, the steady rise and fall of his chest calming the nervous flutter in my stomach. I knew the world outside was waiting, the questions, the complications, the uncertainty of what came next. But for now, in this quiet, golden moment, none of that mattered. I reached out, letting my fingers brush lightly against his, and his hand curled around mine instinctively, even in sleep. Jamie stirred, his eyes fluttering open, and when he saw me, a slow, sleepy smile spread across his face. "Morning," he said, his voice rough with sleep. "Morning," I replied, my own smile matching his. For a long time, we just lay there, the silence between us comfortable and full of possibility. I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, I wasn't afraid of it, because whatever came next, I knew I wouldn't be facing it alone. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, bathing the room in warmth, Jamie squeezed my hand gently, his smile soft but full of meaning. "We're going to be okay," he said, his voice steady and certain. And as I looked at him, at the quiet strength in his eyes, I knew he was right. We would figure it out, together.